Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
Hi, you're welcome to Africa Tech Radio. My name is Lillian and you're listening to Back to Base. You see, we have left the era of anything goes to intentionality. Intentionality in ideation, intentionality in creation, in imaging and other spheres of creativity. And that is the edge that successful tech founders have over others. Now, we know that they have a lot of other tricks up their sleeves, but they'll tell us themselves. I cannot speak for these people who have made something out of literally nothing. And Back to Base is the program that was created to shed a light on these tech founders and also to humanize these tech founders and innovators, so that you know that what they have done, if you can, let me take a borrow leaf of motivational speakers books. They say if you can achieve it, or if you can imagine it, you can achieve it. Perspire to retire without desire. Don't mind me. But we want to tell you about how, they did what they did and how you can do it too. All right. So today on Back to Base, we are getting to know Nura Ali. Hope I pronounced your name well.
You did. Thank you so much. It's great to be on the show with you.
Thank you very much for agreeing to be a guest. I like the prompt response you gave me. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So I told you before we started this particular podcast that I want to get to know you. I want to know you, to the bone marrow. So tell me about your journey so far. But you can tell me about, first of all, how were you brought up in? What kind of family?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that question. So, hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Nura Ali. I'm based in Washington, D.C., but I'm originally from Somalia, and I still go visit. I'm in Africa a lot, so it's not like I haven't been back home. I come from a really big family. I'm the youngest of 8.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of girls. Yeah, it's a lot of girls. It's 7 of us, 1 boy, and we're like, I would say, typical, proper African family. I'm blessed to have my parents still here before. So I was born in Hargeisa, which is in North Somalia. And at that time when we lived there, my dad was he was like the Supreme Court judge. This is before the Civil War of Somalia broke out in 1991. And I was a baby when we left, so I don't really have too much experience at that time in Somalia. But just from the stories, I come from a certain very politically active and also very business-driven family, and I do think those things have been embedded in me. Based, as you can see, just some of the work that I'm doing, and I would say doing impactful work or just helping and giving back to your community was something that was kind of just influenced, or I would say implemented in me at a young age, particularly through my mother and my grandma. I started off when we came to the States. I started first grade here, and then we initially lived in California. We lived in San Diego. That's kind of like that's what I remember, like from childhood. But I spent majority of my life in Minnesota. Minnesota is in the Midwest. We lived in Minneapolis, and living there was great. There wasn't a lot of immigrants at that time. This is like the early 90s. Right now, there's a huge Somali community in Minnesota. There's also a huge just African community, particularly from Liberia, Cameroon, West Africa. You have a lot of Eritreans and Ethiopians there as well. Being in Minnesota, like I say, was just, great. I went to University of Minnesota. During my time at University of Minnesota, I was really able to really understand what I wanted to do in life and how I wanted to be impactful. I ended up pursuing a degree in political science and international relations. And I think that was, and the funny part is, so for my global studies, international relations degree, at that time, they were like, hey, pick a continent you want to focus on. And I think it was just like second nature to just pick Africa. So I've been focusing on Africa, I would say, since I was like 19 years old, just understanding the geopolitical side, but also very understanding different cultures and the history. And I think, to me, history is very, very important. I do believe that our history, particularly African people history, has been written in a way that doesn't, showcase our history from our lens. right? And it's been done from a Eurocentric approach. So that's one of the things that I try to really dive deep into, but really understanding different cultures and how what has happened in the past, hundreds and hundred years, it's still affecting us. Let it be here in the United States or let it be back home on the continent. But since then, I initially actually started off my career. He's not a Congress member anymore, United States Congress member, but he was the first elected Congress member, first elected Muslim Congress member in the United States, Congressman Keith Ellison. That's kind of when I started really getting into politics. I was his first intern. From that, I was able to be part of the DFL party, which is the Democratic Farmers and Labor Party at Minnesota for Obama 08. So I was super politically active in the sense of like, how do you change the local, like your local politics? How do you have a positive impact in your local communities? But I always thought there was this like deep drive for going back home and being able to help different communities and really make a change. That led to me pursuing a career in the federal government, which that's the reason why I moved to DC. And since then, I shifted my career. As you can see, I'm in marketing and brand development now. And since then, I've been able to really, really, tackle different areas. Let it be in strategic partnerships, let it be in impact work, particularly in nonprofit, or let it be when it comes to just marketing, branding, particularly in the tech space.
That is something. But when did your entrepreneurial journey start? What age were you when you decided, okay, I want to dive into entrepreneurship?
So honestly, I would say at a really young age. So my first business idea, I would say, was, I think I was like 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was summertime. Yeah. So my family, like I said, I come from a very business-driven family, particularly from my mom's side. So my mom has been in entrepreneurship, I think, all her life. She comes from, a family that's been politically active, but there's isn't a lot of women from her side of the family. So she kind of took that business side, I would say. And I feel like a lot of African women, do that. But I would say my first, and this was like I said, I was like in 6th grade. I ended up starting like a babysitting business in my neighborhood to like help all the neighbors when, since the kids were not in school in the summertime, I was like doing babysitting and so forth. But my first real business was, it was in marketing. It was kind of interesting because like my educational background is in government and international development and so forth. But I always had this like interest in events and marketing and interacting with people and so forth. So I started real public relations when I was 22. So that was my first real company, I would say. My family helped me start that company. It was more like lifestyle focused. We focused on like lifestyle branding. We wanted to work with fashion brands and also athletes and so forth. So that was my first, I would say, real, LLC.
About this babysitting business that you started, I just thought about something. Uber for babysitters, right? Instead of you contacting people and they're saying they're busy, you take your app and I don't know, it should be a thing over there by now, but if it's not, it should be.
I remember a few years ago, I was working on this project. I forgot. Oh, we were working on a ride-sharing actually app for a client. They're called Trip, actually.
Okay.
They're Nigerian, actually. They're based in London. I think they also have a market in Nigeria as well, actually. And I remember while I was doing the market analysis and understanding what different ride-sharing apps are out there and so forth, I did come across a babysitter. It was more like picking up your kids type of ride-sharing, but that led to, there's apps out there that you can, at least in the States, that you can, look through and then find the right babysitter for you.
That is amazing. So tell me about, you said you started your company, but you also went to University of Minnesota. After you finished university, what next? What was the next step for you?
So after I finished the University of Minnesota, I actually, I was still interning. I was ending my internship with Congressman Keith Ellison, and he kind of was just like, hey, you should move to DC and really pursue politics or pursue something in the government. So I ended up moving to Washington, D.C. to pursue my master's in international development. But I also ended up getting a job with the United States General Service Administration Office. So I initially started, I was a program analyst. I worked with the management, and that was more just kind of getting my foot in the door. That wasn't really what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to focus more on like foreign policy and being able to really do more like on the ground work in Africa. So I was with GSA for about 5 years. And then I ended up, honestly, it was like 2015, I dropped everything. And I always tell people this story that I ended up just dropping my whole life in the States, in Washington, D.C. And I ended up moving to Ethiopia.
Why? Why did you do that?
I would say it's first of all, I always tell people, like, if you feel like you're not elevating, or you feel like you're not being inspired, or, there's just like your spirit, it's not there 100%, rather than continuing doing the same thing over and over again, sometimes you just have to leave the environment you're in. And you might not even know what's going on at that moment. For me, I didn't even know what's going on at that moment. It was more we had a business in the Somali region of Ethiopia doing imports and exports, and I was also actively doing a lot of work there at that time. We built a library for some orphanage. It was like a school for kids who didn't have families and so forth. So one of the projects and this is like we completed the project 2013, but we were still doing a lot of work with the school. But we ended up doing a library for the kids at the school. We donated over 10,000 books. We were also doing a lot of different like infrastructure projects, like hotels and so forth. So my mom I think she noticed, mothers, especially African mothers, they know their kids very well. Mm-hmm. So my mother kind of noticed that I really wasn't as driven as I was. And I think maybe because I just had to make that decision on which direction I wanted to go with my career. And she invited me to come work for her for her import-export company. And they needed some of my expertise. So it just kind of worked out that way. And I went there. I was in Ethiopia for about a year. Just to give you a background, so the tribe that I'm from, I'm Somali, but we're also in Ethiopia, we're in Somalia, and we're in Kenya because of just, mm-hmm. what have happened when it comes to lines being drawn on the continent. So but right now it's great for me because I'm able to really move around, all three countries really in a flexible way. Mm. So I went there. I was there for about a year, and it was just a lot of I would say personal growth and it's just development. I always tell people really focus on consistently evolving yourself, investing into your personal development in all parts. And sometimes if you have to disconnect from, if you have the opportunity, that is, right? Everyone doesn't have the same opportunity, but if you have the opportunity to be able to just step back and take yourself in an environment that can help you reconnect with who you are, what your core principles are, and so forth, it's okay to do that and then come back so that you can do bigger and better things.
Yeah. We're here to talk to Nura Ali. She is the CEO of Bold Branding Group. And of course, it is Back to Base, which is a founders program that talks about and talks to founders. So let's dive into it, right? You have told us about how you packed your things and left Washington, D.C., a place where people dream to go. You said, no, I need to take a break. So when you
regroup.
Yeah, you need to regroup, recalibrate, and know where you want to head next. Like some people in Nigeria, they'll say, I went to say, Mommy, thank you, ma. When you go home, your mom gives you food, you say, thank you, ma. So they say, I want to go back and say, Mommy, thank you, ma. Literally eat mommy's food. So when you went back to Ethiopia, what happened next?
So, honestly, at that time, I was able to do a mixture of a few things. I dabbled a little bit in international trading, particularly in commodities. But I ended up actually coming back to the States towards the end of 2015. And, everything happens for a reason. I always tell people, just trust the process. And as long as, God can continue to bless you, just continue working on yourself and chasing, your dreams, right? So I ended up actually moving back home to the States just because I had to do some stuff for my family. It was for personal reasons. But in 2016, I ended up starting my career from scratch. And like the amazing thing about life is that, we're always able to always restart or create a different paths for ourselves. And I'm someone who has the opportunity to do that. So my passionate for business and marketing just kind of led me to expand in my career in business development. I was able to really start getting into shifting a little bit away from the public sector, particularly when it comes to just government and NGO work. And I went more into doing sales and marketing. It's just really, really expanding, also understanding how to do like strategic partnerships and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that led me to, from a career standpoint, working for a consulting firm here based in the Washington, D.C. area, doing business analysis. They're called Saycon Enterprise. They're a federal contracting firm. The great thing for me is that even though they're in the private sector, we were still dealing with the federal government. So, doing things like bidding, really working with the leadership there to understand how to do federal contract bidding. But that was really, working at Saycon was really the first time that I was able to really dive deep into brand development and marketing. So this is a company that was around for over 20 years. And they had a outdated logo and just look and feel. And I knew that the CEO wanted to get the whole company just rebranded and just elevated to the next level. So I pitched them my idea of how we should rebrand the company. I was able to help the company save over $80,000 because I found vendors that I have relationships with that was able to do the branding and also web development. I would say that was my turning moment to really, really understanding how to do brand development, but really why I wanted to do brand development. And I was with Saycon, until early 2020. And that was kind of the beginning of my pursuit for Bold Brand Group with Dosi, my business partner.
You mentioned something about the logo of the company looking frail and outdated. So I want to know what role a logo plays in the company. Right logo.
At that company or
in general, the role logos, people just wake up one morning and someone start the company, they put something and say, this is my logo. So how important is it for one to have the right logo?
So it's multiple layers, and that's kind of the approach we take. So it's not so much just the logo, it's the whole brand as a whole. Mm-hmm. We consider branding for a company as the personality, like the person that's representing them, right? So from a logo visual design standpoint, yes, it should be premier. It should be unique in its own way. And it should be something that's easy to use, right? You don't need a complicated logo. But what really makes a brand and what really makes a company really get these consumer loyalty, I would say, or really just increase their brand equity, it's the whole brand. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think a logo is what the brand is, when it's beyond that. It's your color palette, it's your tone, it's your messaging, and it's your brand personality. We create brands that are really focused on purpose-driven. We make sure we infuse a lot of human into the brands we create. So just to answer your question, the logos are very important, but it's beyond the logo. It's the whole brand as a whole. And that's what we kind of push to our clients for them to understand that for you to really be a leader or even to increase your market shares, you have to, present yourself with a brand that people can feel connected with. And that involves multiple things, like I said, the look and feel, but also what you're presenting from a messaging standpoint.
Okay, so since you've started Bold Branding Group, what has been your proudest moment?
Proudest moment, wow. Okay, so we're in year 3, right? So I consider this our growth year, and we're receiving, acknowledgements, rewards. I think my proudest moment, I would say 2021, the end of 2021, we were working with this fintech brand based here, and they got invited. And I've had a few moments, but I'll just speak on this one because I think it's a unique story. They're called Bold Mobile app. It's basically a fintech marketplace for the boating industry. And they came to us to do rebranding, which we did for them. We did more like a brand extension. They wanted to keep their logo, but we just enhanced it. And we also just kind of created a solid brand that they can really put in front of their investors and so forth. But they also got selected to attend this huge conference in Lisbon in Europe called Web Summit. And we were able, particularly me, I was able to go to the conference to represent them as Bold Brand Group, but really as Bold Mobile app. And overall, the experience was amazing, but really being able to pitch a brand that you built from scratch and you're seeing that people are really interacting with it, you know, even though it's not your company, but you infused your ideas, the client, you worked really closely with the client to understand beyond this amazing solution that's for the future that they created, what else are they trying to do? Like, what else do you want to do for the world? And these are the type of questions we ask CEOs or anyone we're working with when we're building their brand. Like, okay, this is an amazing brand, but what else? So just being able to be acknowledged in that space, being able to connect with so many other tech founders at this Web Summit, but also having a brand that we've created get selected to attend this conference because we were able to do like a whole pitch and so forth on their behalf. So that was a really proud moment. And I would say also this year, recently we won brand development agency for product development. So that we won this award about a month ago. And products and just interacting with consumers is something that we're very passionate about. So to get acknowledged for that, I think it's very fulfilling.
That's great. Then how do business know? I'm just curious. How do business know that, okay, it's time for us to repackage? What signs would they be looking out for?
I mean, I think it depends. Like from a business standpoint, if you're trying to expand your market, if you're launching a new product, or sometimes, you know, you will maybe come across individuals like myself or other people that can give you feedback on, say, hey, this is what the market is looking for, and this is the direction you should go. So it's multiple reasons, and also depends on where the company's at financially, right? Because especially if you're a product, like if you're a drink or something that consumers are eating, you know, consuming, there's so many, you have to, from the design, just redesigning the look and feel, you also have to do the packaging. You know, that's its own process. And then you have to do the launch of this new look and feel or new product that you're trying to put out in the market.
You know, when you tell somebody that, okay, from everything we have seen, from analysis, research and everything, it is time for you to rebrand. Many of these owners, they sometimes have fear in them. They would be resisting change. How do you turn that around? How do you change their minds?
It's just truly creating the value, understanding what the customer wants, understanding how you can help best position them in the market. And also, it should never be forced, right? If it's the CEO of a leadership of a company doesn't see the value in that they can best position themselves. I've worked with few like immigrants here in the States. And the thing is, you like global brands or US-based brands and so forth, they really do value what marketing does and how your brand looks and making sure that, you know, you're premier and so forth. They value. I think one of the areas that we lack in as Black people or as Africans or just minorities is, and I've come across this even in my own community, they don't really see the value of marketing. They don't and maybe it has to do with us educating our community to understand, hey, it really does matter how you look in the market. It matters how much you invest into your marketing department or your branding efforts, right? Because the reality of it is, if you look at the global brands, you look at who's actually killing the market, you know, aside from other reasons, right? We're just focusing on marketing and not focusing on financials, or we're not looking at how, from a political standpoint, you know, who's winning or losing in the world. You know, these big brands are coming from countries from the West, right? to a certain extent. And I think we need to maybe educate our communities and even our people back home to truly understand the value of why it's so important to invest in marketing, why it's so important to understand who your consumers are and how to best target them so they can buy your products or services.
Okay. So do you use in your company, do you inculcate tech in your business?
Process?
Yeah, process.
Yeah, I mean, so innovation is, and not to say that tech is the only thing that's innovative, right? There's innovation in all parts, right? I always tell people migration of people or immigrating, it brings innovation. But, we infuse tech. I'm not sure in what way you're looking at it, but in the day-to-day management of the company, we use different tech platforms to help create a seamless process for us. Let it be like right now, we use Notion. We use a lot of different, right now AI is huge and is definitely making life easier for a lot of people. So we're always looking for different tech solutions that can help us, but also technology solutions that can help our customers, our clients.
Okay, so looking at me now, imagine I am someone who wants to go into your line of work. I've been thinking about how to repackage businesses in the sense of making them better in the market and everything, and I do not know how to start. Can you give me advice on where and how to start?
Yeah, before I even do that, I wanted to give you a little bit of what my focus area is, particularly. So I would say, first of all, you can't do it by yourself, right? Especially if you want to, unless, you could say you wear every hat. So I focus more on storytelling. I'm more a strategist as far as the work we do. And then I have my head of design, which is my business partner, Dosi. She does all the designs and the visual side of the work that we do. So I think the first part is understanding what service you want to focus on, right? And saying, hey, what expertise do I already have? Or what expertise can I learn, right? Before you even, unless, some opportunity drops in your lap and you're like, okay, I can do this project and I'm getting paid to do it. Why not take it? But if you want to first understand what your niche is, right? What your services is. And why you're even doing this, what are you trying to achieve, right? And then from that, if you need to find partners, and not business partners, but partners you can collaborate with, so that you can maybe grow your reach, and they can also support you. I think support is so important in finding other creatives or other people who are innovative that you can collaborate with, because you honestly can't do this by yourself unless you want to be like just a freelancer.
Okay. Well, so from your standpoint, what does the future of Bold look like?
So the future of Bold looks very bright and very promising. This is not, we don't consider ourselves just like a typical branded agency or a typical marketing communication firm. We kind of see ourselves as people who are shifting how stories are being told. We see ourselves as transformational leaders who are here to really push purpose-driven brands. I think our goal is really to make people feel belong. So we're very conscious. And that's what I bring. That's what I infuse to my team, right? I push the sense of let's be very conscious of how we make people feel through the different designs and stories and messages that we create. And we want to push being inclusive, right? And also create brands that are for the future. So granted, there's the back end stuff, right? It's just how to operate a business. And that's not easy at all, right? For anyone, right? Mm-hmm. From if you want to expand your team and hire new people, to doing business development and sales, to trying to increase your revenue and so forth. So I'm very excited about the future. We're always looking for people and entities to collaborate with. And I think we're best positioned in the market right now because we're positioning ourselves as a global entity.
That looks really promising. Good luck. But before we go, I just want to ask this. Is there anything you've seen that other branding companies do and you say, okay, these people are getting it wrong? Is there something that people do wrong in the industry right now and they should correct?
I think saying that you do everything where you're not an expert, right? I think that's something I've noticed. We like, for example, we can do public relations, but we don't do public relations. We have partners that we work with that focus on that.
Okay, let's put it this way. Mistakes that is common with a lot of these branding groups, branding companies.
Yeah, I mean, for example, in this space, there isn't too many people that look like us who are doing who have big agencies. It's not. It's very, there's certain agencies that get the funding, that get the recognition and so forth. So I would say for Bold, that we want to push being able to have people that look like us who have this, very international background, but who are very conscious and that want to do impact. Like, for example, I do work on Bold, and Bold is what I'm very passionate about. But at the same time, like, I'm pushing I would say being able to do economic development and work creation, working with SMEs when it comes to Africa. So that's just like its own other arm, right? That we're I would say, working on all these different projects with different startups that are particularly minority owned and so forth here in the States has led me to understand what are the needs of actual SMEs and startups in Africa, and how can we best position them. So I wouldn't sit here and say there's something that's bad or good. I think I would say, particularly here in the States or just in the market space, there isn't too many people who are doing these large, who have these large agencies who are receiving funding to grow and expand market, who are from the same background that we are. And I think there's that clash in the sense of creating messaging and creating content that we can relate to, and that's something that we're trying to push from a more inclusive standpoint.
Okay, is there anything you want to add before we go?
Yeah, so I want to add, and I know we were focusing particularly on Bold, but as you know, that I'm also heavily doing a lot of work in Africa, and I know the market. This is Africa Tech Radio, so I want to. So we're in the process of launching a program in Kenya, but it's for the whole continent through some of the impact work that I'm doing. We're working with Nile Lab. They're based in Kenya. They're an innovator hub. And the title of the program is called Invested into the Next Generation of Innovators. It's basically it's an incubator, being able to find scalable SMEs in Africa that we can basically give resources and tools, and also connect them with capital to scale and grow, and basically workforce development. So that's something that I'm very passionate about. I think doing all this work with Bold has led me to understanding the needs of SMEs and how we can best scale them. So I just wanted to add that into our convo. So it's just to give everyone heads up.
All right, the heads are up. We're going to be contacting you on that. In fact, after this interview, we'll have a brief conversation on that, because that is amazing. A lot of entrepreneurs out there, there are SMEs out there, but scaling is the biggest issue for them. So this would go down well with them. Thank you very much, Nura Ali, for joining us today on Africa Tech Radio. I'm so grateful that you did. This is still Africa Tech Radio. We have great content coming your way, so do not go anywhere. My name is Lillian, and you just listened to Back to Base. Follow us on all our social media platforms. On Instagram, it is at ATech Radio, and all other platforms, including YouTube, it is at Africa Tech Radio. You can also check our podcasts on all streaming platforms. I'm talking about Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, anyone you can think of, or our website at www.africatechradio.com.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.